If you've been wondering why she doesn't seem to think about you as much as you'd like, it's not because you aren't good enough or trying hard enough. The truth is, there's a fine line between showing interest and making yourself too available. And most guys unintentionally cross that line by focusing too much on trying to please her. When you're constantly giving, always responding right away, and never leaving any mystery, you're missing one of the most powerful factors that creates attraction: curiosity. Now, I get it. No one wants to play mind games or act like someone they're not. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you were genuinely curious about someone who told you everything about themselves up front? Or someone who was always there at your convenience, never taking time for themselves, always predictable? Chances are it wasn't long before your mind started wandering elsewhere. Humans, by nature, crave challenge and intrigue, especially when it comes to relationships. So, if you want her to think about you more often, it's time to embrace a different approach, one that doesn't rely on constant communication or always being on standby for her. Now, here's the interesting thing about attraction: it's not always the good guys who leave the deepest impression. This isn't to say that being respectful and considerate doesn't matter. Of course it does. But there's something undeniably powerful about leaving a bit of mystery, a hint of unpredictability, and yes, a little bit of a bad edge that keeps her wanting more. When you're too transparent, she knows exactly what to expect. And it's easy for her mind to wander because, well, there's nothing left to wonder about. Think about it. Most people remember someone who made them feel a mix of emotions, someone who wasn't always easy to read. This doesn't mean you have to change who you are, but by understanding the psychology of attraction, you can make subtle shifts in your approach that create a deeper, more lasting impact. Instead of thinking that you have to be perfect or always available, realize that sometimes stepping back and allowing her to wonder what you're up to can be far more effective. One of the first steps to creating this dynamic is simple but often overlooked. Stop being so readily available. Imagine a scenario where every time she sends you a message, you reply immediately. Every time she asks to meet up, you're free, even if it means changing your plans or making adjustments to fit her schedule. On the surface, this seems polite and attentive, but what you're actually doing is showing her that your time isn't in demand, that you're constantly waiting around for her. But think about it. People are naturally more interested in what they can't easily access. When you're always accessible, it can start to feel like you're taken for granted because there's no effort required to get your attention. By simply taking a little longer to respond, or not rearranging your schedule every time she's free, you subtly communicate that you're someone with a full life, someone who doesn't revolve around her. This doesn't mean ignoring her or playing hard to get to the extreme. It's about balancing your availability so that when you do interact, it feels more intentional, more valuable. Another powerful way to stay on her mind is by not revealing everything about yourself too quickly. It's natural to want to share details about who you are, what you like, and what you're all about. But there's something captivating about leaving a few things to the imagination. If she knows every little detail from the start, there's no space left for her mind to fill in. Instead of telling her about every aspect of your weekend or sharing every detail of a recent experience, try holding back just a little. Give her a glimpse, but not the full picture. For example, if you just got back from a trip or had an exciting weekend, share a highlight or two, but keep some parts vague. This does two things. It creates a reason for her to ask more questions, and it keeps her guessing, wondering about the parts you didn't mention. The best part? This isn't manipulation. It's about creating a natural flow of curiosity that makes conversations more engaging and memorable for both of you. She'll find herself thinking about you, wondering what else there is to know, and looking forward to learning more over time. If you're the type of person who likes things to be predictable, it can feel unnatural to hold back or not answer every question in full. But think about some of the most intriguing people you've met. They weren't necessarily mysterious in an obvious way. They simply left room for your curiosity to do some work. When you know everything about someone too quickly, the excitement fades faster. By leaving a few gaps here and there, you're actually making the experience more enjoyable for both of you. She'll be interested not just in what you do, but in who you are beneath the surface. This doesn't mean you should be vague or distant all the time. It means balancing what you share, letting her mind wander just enough to make you someone she can't quite figure out. Another way to make sure she keeps thinking about you is by avoiding predictability. Think about the relationships or friendships that have kept you interested for a long time. Chances are there was some level of unpredictability, a sense that you never knew exactly what was coming next. People are naturally drawn to excitement, and part of that excitement comes from the unexpected. If you always react in the same way, always make the same plans, or always follow the same routine, it becomes easy for her to anticipate what you'll say or do. And when that happens, it's only a matter of time before her interest begins to drop. Instead of sticking to one approach, try mixing things up. Maybe one day you're fully engaged in deep conversation, talking about meaningful topics, while the next, you're more lighthearted, joking around and keeping things casual. Or one day you surprise her by planning something spontaneous. These little shifts make you someone she can't entirely predict, and that keeps her intrigued. Unpredictability doesn't mean being inconsistent or unreliable. It simply means that you're not entirely an open book. You have different sides to your personality, and you're not afraid to show them. It's about adding variety to your interactions so that she's always kept on her toes. When you create this balance, she'll start looking forward to your next interaction because, honestly, she won't know what to expect. And that's a good thing. When you become someone who can surprise her, someone who's not always the same every single time, you bring a sense of excitement that's hard to ignore. It's human nature to feel more drawn to what's a bit elusive. The key is to stay authentic while showing different parts of yourself, making it clear that you're someone with depth, someone who doesn't fall into easy patterns. Then there's confidence. This is something you can't fake, and it doesn't mean trying to come off as arrogant. Confidence is simply the quiet, unshakable belief in your own worth and the understanding that you don't need anyone else to feel validated. When you have confidence, you don't feel desperate for her attention or approval. You can enjoy her company, share moments, and make a connection, but you're also okay on your own. That's attractive because it's rare. So many people make the mistake of thinking they need to constantly seek approval or get reassurance from others. But all this does is create the opposite effect. When you're truly confident, you're not rushing to impress her, and that lack of neediness is something she'll notice right away. Confidence shows in the little things. For instance, instead of second-guessing every word you say or every move you make, you simply let things flow. You say what you mean without constantly worrying about how she'll perceive it. You're comfortable with yourself, flaws and all, and you don't need her to validate your choices or feelings. When you interact with her from this place of assurance, you're signaling that you value yourself. And that kind of energy is contagious. It subtly suggests to her that you're worth thinking about, that you're someone who doesn't need to be constantly chasing approval. When she senses that you're comfortable in your own skin, it creates a mental shift where she finds herself drawn to you more and more, precisely because you're not desperately seeking her validation. And here's an interesting tactic that, if done right, can keep things playful and lighthearted: gentle teasing, or what some call good nagging. Now, let's clear this up. This is not about being rude or hurtful. It's about using humor to add a bit of a playful challenge into your interactions. Maybe you jokingly tease her about her choice of music or laugh at her love for a guilty pleasure TV show. These small, harmless jabs show that you're not afraid to poke a little fun and that you don't put her on a pedestal. What's important here is the balance. If done right, this kind of banter makes interactions feel dynamic and exciting, and it's an easy way to show that you're not intimidated by her. At the same time, it keeps her wondering, in a good way, what your next playful comment might be. This approach of teasing, when kept light and respectful, is something she'll likely think back on with a smile. It shows her that you have the confidence to play around a little, that you're someone who's not afraid to add a bit of unpredictability to the mix. It's these small moments that break away from the typical routine and leave a lasting impression. making her think about you when you're not around. Think about it. If every conversation is smooth, easy, and entirely agreeable, it won't stand out in her mind. But if you add a bit of playful tension, if you make her laugh and roll her eyes at the same time, you're creating memories that stick. Here's something that most people overlook: the way you handle space and distance. When you're always available or constantly in her space, it can feel suffocating whether you realize it or not. Think of it this way: if you're always there, there's no chance for her to miss you, no time for her to think back and wonder what you're doing or where you're at. Creating a bit of distance, even if it's just in small ways, can be incredibly powerful. This doesn't mean ignoring her or disappearing for days without a reason. Instead, it's about being comfortable with giving her a bit of space so that she has time to feel your absence. Maybe you don't respond immediately every single time. Maybe you give her a day or two between hangouts instead of pushing for back to back plans. These small acts of restraint can make a huge difference. Distance creates the perfect opportunity for her mind to wander back to you. It gives her a chance to start thinking about what you're up to, what's on your mind, or when she'll see you next. If you're always available, that mental space is never there. And it's that space that creates a sense of longing, even on a small level. When she's left wondering, even just a bit, it opens a loop in her mind that wants to be closed, and that's when you start to become someone she thinks about more often. Don't underestimate the power of giving her a little time to miss you. It's subtle but effective because it gives her room to appreciate you without feeling like you're constantly in her orbit. On top of giving her space, make sure that when you do interact, you're making it count. Being memorable isn't about trying to impress her with grand gestures or over the top stories. Often it's the quality of your presence that leaves a lasting mark. When you're with her, be fully present. Put away distractions, listen carefully, and genuinely engage. Ask meaningful questions, and don't be afraid to share your own thoughts and opinions without holding back. People tend to remember those who make them feel truly seen and understood, so instead of trying to be impressive, focus on creating meaningful interactions. When she feels that you're truly present with her, those moments stand out in her mind and make you someone she thinks about long after. Another key to making her think about you is embracing your own passions and goals. One of the most attractive traits you can have is a sense of purpose, something that drives you, something you're excited about. This is not only attractive, but also creates a natural curiosity in her mind. If she knows that you have things going on in your life that fulfill you, she'll want to know more, to understand what makes you tick. Whether it's a career goal, a hobby, or a side project, when you're genuinely invested in your own pursuits, it shows her that you're someone with ambition, someone who's working towards something bigger than just getting her attention. This kind of energy is contagious, and it often leads people to feel drawn to you in a way that's deeper than mere attraction. She'll start wondering about your plans, your future, and the things you're passionate about. And that's a powerful way to stay on her mind. Remember, people are naturally drawn to those who have a life of their own. If your world revolves entirely around her, it can come across as needy or overly dependent. But when you have your own dreams, goals, and hobbies, you're creating a dynamic where you're not just pursuing her, you're also pursuing your own growth and development. This makes you intriguing and shows that you're someone with depth and vision. When she knows that you have a life outside of her, it sends a message that you're not relying on her for fulfillment. And that's an attractive quality that keeps her thinking about you. It's important to strike the right balance here. You don't want to seem overly distant or uninterested, but you also don't want to appear overly focused on her alone. By investing in your own life and sharing glimpses of your passions and goals, you create a sense of balance where she knows you're genuinely interested in her, but you also have things that matter to you beyond the relationship. This gives her a sense that there's more to discover about you, that you're someone who's multifaceted, with layers that can't be easily unraveled. And that mystery is something that naturally makes her want to know you better. One final approach to making her think about you more often is by building shared experiences that have an emotional impact. People are most likely to remember moments that evoke strong emotions, whether it's laughter, excitement, or even a bit of tension. This doesn't mean you have to engineer dramatic situations, but it does mean being intentional about creating memorable moments together. It could be as simple as doing something new, like taking her to an unexpected place, introducing her to a hobby she's never tried, or even having a deep conversation that leaves both of you feeling connected. When she associates you with moments that feel unique or intense, she's far more likely to think back on those experiences and, by extension, think about you. Creating memorable moments can be about pushing boundaries a bit too, perhaps even breaking the ordinary routine. If your time together feels special, she'll start associating you with those unique emotions. Take a moment to laugh at something ridiculous together or share a secret that makes her feel like she's seeing a more personal side of you. Little things like this stick in her memory, and she'll find herself thinking back to those times and wanting to experience them again. It's about building a kind of chemistry that makes every interaction feel different from her everyday life. So when she looks back, you stand out as someone who adds a unique spark to her world. And here's a simple truth. The moments that make her think about you often happen when you're not around. By doing all the things we've talked about, leaving room for mystery, staying confident, holding back just enough, and creating moments that stand out, you become someone she can't fully get out of her head. You're no longer just another person she met. You're someone she's curious about, someone whose presence in her life feels a little unpredictable, a little exciting. When you create that balance of closeness and distance, of interest and independence, it pulls her into a dynamic where she's not just passively involved, but actively engaged, even when she's not with you. Remember, the goal here isn't to manipulate her thoughts or play mind games. It's to create a connection that feels natural yet intriguing, one where you both bring your best selves to the table. By embracing a bit of unpredictability, giving her space to miss you, staying confident in who you are, and letting her see different sides of you, you're setting the stage for something meaningful. This isn't about trying to be someone you're not or following a strict playbook. It's about understanding what makes people connect on a deeper level and using that to create a bond that keeps you in her thoughts. As you put these strategies into action, remember that the most powerful way to make someone think about you is to be true to yourself. Authenticity and confidence are hard to ignore, and when combined with a hint of mystery, they create a unique presence that stands out in her mind. Instead of constantly wondering what she's thinking, focus on living fully, growing personally, and building a life that you're genuinely proud of. When she sees you as someone who's self-assured, interesting, and a bit unpredictable, you won't have to worry about whether she's thinking about you, because chances are she already is.